The South Gauteng High Court will on Thursday morning hear the matter between ANC members under the banner of Kgalema disputed NEC versus the ANC. The members are taking the party to court to compel the ANC to provide raw data of all branch nominations for the NEC additionals. They claim that the nomination process is flawed. The Electoral Committee is opposing the court challenge. The group wants the matter to be placed on the agenda of the party's national conference that will take place from the 16th. All right, let's, with just a few days before the start of the 55th ANC National Conference, we examine the governing party's economic policy. Our SABC Specialist researcher, Velemseni Mthiyane, has now joins us here in studio to talk more on this. A very good afternoon to you, and thanks very much for joining us. Nice to have you on air this time.
Good afternoon, Flo.
All right, let's start here. South Africa, of course, has this land ownership issue, which certainly keeps coming up. Is the ANC succeeding, in addressing this issue?
Firstly, Flo, maybe we should start by looking at the policies in its entirety. Policies, they usually do not just happen in vacuum. There are political implications, there are financial implications, and there are also, in the issue of land, the legal issues. So when they discuss the policies at the policy conference, I think at the top of the agenda should be, are these policy proposals or resolutions implementable? So that by the time they go to the conference, when they adopt them, they adopt policies that are implementable. So if we look in the case of the land expropriation without compensation, there's been the proposals to amend the Section 25 of the Constitution. Now, there's been a lot of arguments on that. Others are saying government has not fully exhausted the available avenues. So the ruling party, by adopting this as their policy to say, let's change Section 25 so that we are able to expropriate without compensation. Others are saying there's still a gap before you can even change the Constitution. But others are also saying the ruling party is playing to the public gallery because it sounds cliche to say we will expropriate without compensation.
Right.
So now another issue, which is a thorny issue, is the issue of Ingonyama Trust.
Yeah, and how does this play in? I mean, we've certainly seen it being, a KZN issue, but now it's really coming to the forefront. Let's speak to that.
Well, at the moment, if we look into it, there's a new king on the seat.
Right.
And we do not know the discussions that are going on right there. But there's been the report by former President Kgalema Motlanthe, which spoke of Ingonyama Trust. And also there's been this battle of ideas to say, should it be left alone or should it be attended to so that people who reside under the Ingonyama Trust could have more access to the land. And the issue also of Ingonyama Trust, it has not been doing well in terms of governance. So there's a big issue that the relevant department needs to attend to. So we wait to see and how are they going to address this, if at all it's going to be a matter.
And while we carry on talking about these five key policies, of course, we cannot leave out the issue of the economy, which we've been seeing has been struggling in terms of growth. What are some of the discussions in terms of policy, that are happening within the ANCs that very obviously affect us on a day-to-day?
Sure. Look, there's been many good policies on paper.
Yeah.
But the issue is again the implementation. If you can look in terms of the skills gap. Is government spending on education, in particular tertiary institution, meeting the job market needs and skills? I think if that needs to be addressed, and the party needs to speak into how that gap gets to be closed. Secondly, it needs to speak into the issues of bringing in the industries that are labor intensive. We speak of agriculture, so that they enhance the agriculture, and then they also enhance the agro-processing and also enhance the manufacturing sectors, so that because these sectors, they absorb a lot of people, so that jobs can be created in that regard. Currently, if we look at the statistics, we're looking at the unemployment that is sitting around about 32.9%, which is
scary picture.
Very scary. 7.7 million people unemployed who could not find job but actively looking for a job. And then we've got 3.5 million people who have temporarily halted their efforts to look for a job. So if you put them all together, you're looking at above 11 million individuals that are capable of working that cannot find job. The party then has to look into its policies and say, whatever that we are proposing, is the political environment in terms of policy stable? Is the country attracting the right volume of investors? There are investment conferences that the president of the country has been bringing, but slowly but surely we need to now evaluate if those are materializing. But within the party needs to be making sure that the policies that they are making are policies that can be implemented, are not policies that are playing to the public gallery.
And I mean, while you're talking about employment, that brings into key issues like poverty and inequality. I see some of your subheadings there. I also think it's quite important then to talk about this issue of the basic income grant, because this obviously all plays into each other.
Look, again, if you look at the fiscal situation of the country, serious questions need to be asked. Yes, there is a poverty, but can the fiscus afford it? Remember, South Africa is only just a small player within a global perspective. The world is watching. They are watching the public spending, which exceeds the collections. And then it means that the country must be able to consolidate its spending. Now, if we look into the issue of poverty, statistics says roughly about maybe 50% of South Africa's population, about 28 million people, they struggle to put food on the table or to go to bed with some food in their stomach. So that's one of the key issues that the party, after this, they must say, we need to talk real policies, practical policies that can be monitored, that can be evaluated, policies that are not playing to the public gallery, but policies that are looking into the global picture and global dynamic of economy, how the economy is and the decisions that are being taken, how are they affecting the country? Like we're speaking of the issue of the basic income grant. Currently, government is spending a lot of money. About 9 million people are on the SRD grant. But now, if government was to implement the basic income grant, it speaks in terms of the volume of the people who are going to be eligible for the application. That's one. Two, the amount that will have to be paid. It will have to be a little bit above 350, which is currently getting paid. The question is, can the National Treasurer, applying their prudent economic principles, is this affordable by the country? So the ANC, as they speak, they need to always take into consideration if the policies are implementable and if the environment is conducive.
Yeah. Let's come to the third point of the 5 key issues we're discussing today, the nationalization of the Reserve Bank, of course, becoming quite a hot topic there. Who would then benefit from the nationalization of the Reserve Bank? And you know, what are the dynamics perhaps at play there that we might not be aware of?
Firstly, within the party, it's been a factional issue now that those who are so-called radical economic transformation faction, they want the nationalization of the Reserve Bank.
Right.
You'll remember a couple of years ago, the now suspended ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule came out of the NEC meeting and said they have resolved into nationalizing the Reserve Bank, which was later refuted because that's not part of the things that were being discussed at that NEC meeting. So there is a desire to push for the nationalization of the Reserve Bank. As to who benefits, it's another question altogether, because if you look at the ownership, even those who are currently owning shares, there isn't any material benefit that you would say it warrants that the Reserve Bank be nationalized to someone's benefit. But another point is the issue of the policy mandate of the Reserve Bank. The Constitution mandates the Reserve Bank to look into the monetary policy of the country and to protect the currency of the country. But now, those who are on the other side, they are saying it must add some elements of growth in it. Now, you can just look in terms of the corruption, the scandals, and so on and so forth. Now, nationalizing the Reserve Bank with some serious billions in terms of the reserve currencies that the country has, the trust, the level of trust. The level of trust, if the governance of the Reserve Bank will not be weakened if it gets to be nationalized. Those are the questions that are being brought forward. But in terms of the, if you were to ask me, what do I think, if I look at it, it doesn't benefit the public.
All right, then that leads me to the issue of the establishment of a state-owned bank. Part of your research says that South Africa has about 20% of the population who remains unbanked, and I wonder if that means that people are stashing money in couches. What can you tell us?
Okay, so actually the World Bank released the statistics early this year saying about 85% of the adults in South Africa have bank accounts, meaning we've got about roughly 15 to 20% of the adult population that do not have the bank accounts. However, the establishment of the state-owned bank is said to be going to make it easier for those who are unbanked, who are in the far-flung areas, to have access to bank accounts, to have access to low-cost bank accounts. But now the other issue is the access of funding for the small enterprises, SMMEs. There are others who are saying they do not have collateral when they go to the other banks. So there is a need for the state-owned bank to be able to give some sort of support in terms of the sector of the SMME. But if we're to gauge at the process, this is one of the areas where there is a progress. As we speak, early this year, I think around about May, there was a bill, a post-bank bill that was submitted to the National Assembly for consideration, and we hope that after it has been approved and it will go to the President to be signed, and the post-bank will be moderated into becoming a full-service state-owned bank.
And let's close off with, talk about the energy needs, very important in these five key policies that we are discussing. And then interestingly, as we just get the news that the CEO of Eskom, Andrew Director, has resigned. But let's talk to where, of course, the ANC is indeed standing when we're talking about policy when it comes to the energy needs and how we source our energy.
Again, this plays so much into the factional battles. Yeah. You have those who are being regarded as fossil fuel dinosaurs who do not want renewables at all, right? And then you also have those who appear to be overly endorsing renewables at the expense of the coal, such that others are fearful of whether or not the just energy transition will happen in a way that will protect those who are currently within the coal industry and the communities that are benefiting from the coal industry, and those businesses to be assisted to transition to be able to also contribute towards energy, but more using renewables. Right. So that's the issue now, factional battles within the party. So we need to, after they have met, they need to, the country is really experiencing serious challenges. The problem is old. About 2007, 2008, this problem has been here, but every conference, they talk about it. They talk about how they're going to strengthen Eskom. They talk about how they're going to bring on board renewables. And it has not been happening, more especially during the tenure of the former President Jacob Zuma. We've only been seeing a lot of renewables projects being signed now that there's a new president. So it's the issue. Others are feeling like maybe it's the issue of the vested interest. For instance, the Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources, he is viewed as one of those people who are pro-coal and to a certain extent fearful or doubtful of the pace and the endorsement of the renewables. And then again, the loans that the country has been taking to fast-track the issue of just energy transition, those who are on the other side, I would say the RET, are feeling that the country is getting indebted unnecessarily, but at the same time there are those that says the status quo cannot remain. There needs to be a change in the energy mix of our country. All
right, many thanks to you, Velemseni Mthiyane, who's an SABC Specialist researcher. I think it's great for our viewers to see the sort of people who work behind us and behind the scenes doing all that research. Many thanks to you for coming to the studio then.